Hello guys and welcome to the Maya chess tournament. This was the first round and I was the last one to finish the game. I played a 6-hour game. That was incredible, but let's gonna see what happened. I was black on this game and I played against one of the top player in the list. It was the number 9 of the list. A guy with 1961 elo from Portugal. Let's see what's happened. He played c4. Okay, I'm not so well prepared to play against the c4, but I decided to play knight f6. I said, okay, let's gonna see what's happened. He played knight c3, and I played e6. Because my idea, when I don't know what I can play, I play e6, d5, and knight f6. So that was my plan in this position. He played g3, and I played d5. He continued taking my central pawn, so he takes d5, d4, c6, defending the pawn. So now my structure is well because he cannot play in the future maybe a bishop on b5, a knight on b5, everything is control. So he played bishop g2, of course, because he played g3, so his plan was probably playing bishop g2, knight f3 castle. I don't know in which order, but probably was that the plan, and I played bishop f5. e3, knight a6. Okay, knight a6, I know that is a strange move. It's not a big mistake, that's a strange move. But I decided to play this move because my goal was jumping with the knight on c2. It's a long trip for my knight, but that was just my plan. And if he plays something like a3, stopping my plan, I can just maybe go back on c7, replacing my knight somewhere. But during the game, he didn't play a3, and he played knight e2. So I played knight b4, any castle. Yeah, okay, my plan was jumping on c2, and that's what I played. I played knight c2. But here there is a move that my opponent could play that was e4, stopping my bishop to control c2. And if I play, for example, knight takes c4, he can play bishop takes c4, bishop takes c4, knight takes c1, knight on, for example, c5, and he can take my knight easier, and that's a good position for white. But in this position, my opponent decided just to play rook b1, and I go back on b4. And I said, maybe we can repeat, because if you go back, for example, on a1, in my mind, I have to play again knight c2, and we have to repeat the position. But that was not as been played, because in this position, after knight b4, he played e4, stopping my bishop to control again on c2. So I played e4, d takes e4. I decided to play d takes instead of knight takes because I said, okay, maybe in the future, probably next move, my opponent can play something like a3. I didn't consider it this move order, to be honest, and take this one. But I considered just that he could attack my knight, and I want to save my knight. And for that reason, I decided to play d takes e4, create a square for my knight, and that's what I played. He played a3, and I go back, like in my mind, on d5. He played queen c2, and in this position, he auto-pinned the queen, because if I push the pawn, I'm attacking the queen. But the problem is bishop is not defended, so I need to do something. So for that reason, I played queen d7. Queen d7 defending the bishop. But at the same time, if we want, for example, to play something like queen b3, I can defend at the same time also the b7 pawn. So in my mind, that move was great. He played knight takes e4, so he took the pawn back, and I played queen e6. I played queen e6 just for forcing him to play the move that he played, because he could play some other moves like, for example, this one, or he could play rook e1, putting the rook on the same file where my queen and my king was. So there was many options for my opponent, but in my mind, he had to play just this move, f3. And that's the move that he played, especially because f3 is great for me, and was in my mind great, because now he's also stopping his bishop to be played in the diagonal. So was great for me. Knight is pinned, bishop is not playing well, so that's a great position for me in my mind. I decided to play bishop e7 because I needed to develop pieces. was not enough. I couldn't attack his knight again with other pieces, so I just said, okay, let's gonna develop pieces, castle, and do things like that. And I play bishop e7, he played rook e1, and in this position I think I took a lot because I wanted to castle, but at the end I decided to play rook d7. I spent a lot of time for this move. I spent 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and he played knight to c3. I castle because there was some problem if I didn't castle, and he moved the rook on f2 because he didn't want to have a pinned knight. Knight is still pinned because I'm also attacking the rook, but maybe he could play something like knight takes, bishop takes, and moving the rook, and everything was fine for him. But now there was a problem for my opponent because my queen is ready to attack this pawn, and there was the goal that I had in my mind. So for that reason, I played bishop d8 because I wanted to replace my bishop on b6 going to attack this pawn. Probably was not enough, and was exactly what's happened. But let's gonna see what my opponent played. He played bishop d2. I played my bishop on b6 because that was my plan, and he moved the other rook on d1 on the same file where my queen is. I played the rook on e8, knight c5, opening the file. We could trade, but of course, knight was attacking my queen, so I needed to do something. And for that reason, I decided to play bishop takes e5, d takes e5, and rook takes e1. Rook takes e1. And here, in this position, my opponent could simply play f4, opening the diagonal for the bishop, and that was something that I didn't want to see. So for that reason, I played bishop h3. That is also the best move in this position. Bishop h1, and okay, probably my opponent could play something like g4, try to trap my bishop, and for that reason I decide just to play h5. I also create an escape for my king in case my opponent is ready to attack me on the 8th rank. Queen d4, he developed the queen. I played rook e8, knight e4, and rook e7. Yeah, I missed some moves. I didn't have so much time in this position. At just 2 minutes, my opponent had 10 minutes, and I just moved quickly just because I need to play quickly. He played the bishop on g5, so he developed also the bishop well. Bishop e6, I moved immediately. I didn't think more than 30 seconds. And bishop takes f6, knight takes f6. He played a brilliant move here because he played queen takes, pawn takes, knight takes, king g7, knight takes d7, and rook takes d7. This is an endgame where my opponent has a pawn out. But the problem for him was that my pieces was more active than his pieces. So I started after f4 that opened the diagonal for the bishop to attack my opponent pawn. So I was ready to take this pawn. He also tried to attack me. So he played bishop f3, rook takes b2, bishop takes h5, and I played bishop d5, ready to attack here. He didn't want to see a rook on g2, so he decided to play rook g2 because he wanted to trade, of course, because he was a pawn up, and of course because he had 3 pawns against a single one on this part of the board. I didn't want to trade the rooks, but I decided to play rook b3. I said, okay, let's gonna take some pawn. Rook e7, I checked him. King f2, check, because my plan was going to take this pawn because I needed to remove one pawn on the king side. So rook e2, I play the rook b3, I want to attack that pawn, rook e7 again, and here I continue to attack him on b2. He go back with the bishop on e2, bishop e6, and finally we got 30 minutes more because at move 40 we get 30 minutes more. After a long thing with 1 minute on the clock, I finally got some minutes. Rook e8, and here I decided to play rook c2 attacking this pawn. Rook e3, king e3, and rook takes e5. g4, check. I check my opponent, he moved. I didn't want to take this pawn because, as I said, was necessary for me going to take one of the pawn on the other side. So bishop d3 and rook takes. From one pawn less, I arrived in a situation where I was a pawn up. But the problem was my opponent was ready to checkmate me because he played first f5. I moved my bishop on d5 and he played g5. And I needed to be careful here because one move and was over. Because bishop was controlling the diagonal. So I played probably the only move that could save me in this position, f6, check, king back on f8, and g takes f6. Okay, he got a pawn, but two double pawns on the same file was probably not so great for him. I moved my rook on a2, rook take d7, rook takes. He moved the bishop back because he was ready also to attack me here and checkmate me because I couldn't escape if he played that move. And for that reason, first of all, I played rook a4. He moved the king on c5, and I played rook h4. He took the pawn on a7, rook h6, he couldn't defend this pawn, and when I realized that I could take this pawn, I said, okay, this game is draw. I offered the draw to my opponent. He didn't accept because he was much stronger than me, and he wanted to win because he was 250 kilo more than me. I understand why he decided not to accept the draw, and also because I had just 2 minutes on the clock. He moved the king on e5, rook f7, check, king g7, he moved the bishop on h5, rook e7 check, and he moved the king on f4, king f6, bishop g6, and rook check. I decided to attack my opponent. I go up and down with my king, check again, I go back with the rook, I want to trade pieces. And in a moment, my opponent, after many moves that we played, put his king in a completely unsafe position. Because as you can see, in this exactly position, I couldn't win the game. I need just to play this move because king has no moves. Only move that he could play was this one. But after rook h4, only move that he could play was this one. Bishop f3, he cannot save this one. No, so I could win easily the game. But I missed the move because I had 1 minute 48 seconds. I realized that I could attack his king, but I unfortunately played the rook just on f4. So he checked me, I go back on g7, he played that move, we trade rooks, and okay, we didn't want to draw in this position. That is completely draw, of course, but after a few moves, finally, we decided to draw. Game was extremely difficult, long. First game we played in the evening, so we finished at 1 a.m. So really incredible. I played 92%, so I was proud of the game that I played. And let's see what's happened on next game. Text me on the comments, what do you think about this game? And don't forget to follow the channel.